Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Let me introduce the members of town government to the Sisters Board. To my left is Martin Simon, Assistant Town Attorney. To his left is Blaise Donadio, Planning in the Planning Department. You're all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide this board with precise and accurate information so we can make a decision based on the facts presented. This board must consider the 5 area variance considerations in order to render a decision, and they are as follows. They're listed up there also. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates and postings of mailings to Mr. Donadio, if you haven't done so already. Then you'll be asked to go to the podium, where you'll state your name and address for the record, and proceed to tell us why you need the variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 2 ways to find out about your case. You can call the planning office tomorrow after 12, or you can wait and be notified by mail. We do have 2 adjournments tonight. The first adjournment is case number 18913, Frank Wally. That has been adjourned to May 23rd. And the next case on the agenda that is asking for an adjournment is case number 18916, Gerard Castine. That has been adjourned to August 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, case number 18914, Nicholas and Annalise DiZenzo, 2 Oak Run Drive, Wisconsin. The location of the property is the southeast corner of Oak Run Drive and Westminster Court South. The property is owned R15. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Westminster Court South from 45 feet to 14 feet for a proposed 256 square foot shed and an existing 49 square foot shed.
Good evening.
Good evening. Nick DeZenzo at 2 Oak Run Drive in Wisconsin. Looking to, I got the information, my name, the address.
I'm sorry?
What else was I supposed to say? I'm like first, I'm all nervous.
That's all. Name and address. Just name and address.
Name and address, okay,
That's
good. So I'm seeking the variance for this. My house falls on a corner lot, so technically, I have a very big front yard. I'm hoping to use what looks like my side yard for the accessory structure, as well as the existing shed that I actually built under the assumption that it was my side yard, so it could be there. So I wasn't aware that it was considered my front yard at the time. Within a week of building that, I found it out, and now, hence why I'm here. The hope is to use those, obviously, the small sheds being used for things that I need for my family, my house, my yard, etc. Accessory structure, additional storage for other Christmas decorations, all other fun stuff that just takes up a lot of space inside the house.
All right. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Planning.
Thank
Anyone in the audience who would like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18915. Nicole Arcario, 12 Hayrick Lane, Comac. The location of the property, the northeast corner of Hayrick Lane and Bluegrass Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 40 feet to 29 feet for proposed 16-foot by 32-foot in-ground swimming pool, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the rear yard from 25% to 29% for proposed patio.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sean Bird. I'm the architect, office at 1049 Park Boulevard, Massapequa Park, New York, 11762. We did provide a power of attorney beforehand that was approved by council.
Okay, thank you.
We are before you for the variance in the front yard. We had a variance 18790 last year for a fence in an existing fence that was in that front yard, and this board did grant that variance. We proposed the pool in a compliant location at that time, based on the letter from PSE&G with the electric requirements before our application. When we went and got our pre-inspection by PSE&G again, they actually denied the location of the pool because there's an electric line on the side of the house where the pool is, has to be 10 feet away. So we were proposing moving the pool. They only asked for 9 foot. We were proposing moving it 11 feet just to give ourselves a little bit more of a tolerance since we were going into the front yard. It is into the area that was already previously granted with the fence area. So this is strictly a requirement based on the existing electrical that is currently there. It's the same application that was before the board, except just a different location of the pool. And we do wish that we had the proper information with the electric prior to coming. Last time, we would have presented this pool location at the same time as the fence location.
Right.
For the paving, in shifting over the pool where the existing pool was, we tried to do the minimal towards the street. So we still maintain that 4-foot walkway on that side, but in pulling over the 10-foot, we just added a little bit extra paving on outside the existing patio to connect to the pool.
Is that an overhead line bringing the electric to the house?
Correct. It's all utilities, the electric and the cable and data.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Excuse me. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
The next case on the agenda,
You want to switch?
is yours working?
Testing?
Okay, there we go. The next case on the agenda, case number 18899, Bianca Karas, 99A Lake Avenue in Wisconsin. The location of the property is the intersection of Lake Avenue South and Gibbs Pond Road. The property is Zone CB. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Gibbs Pond Road from 10 feet to 6 feet for an existing 6-foot fence, to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Lake Avenue South from 5 feet to 0 for an existing 54-square-foot ground sign, to increase the maximum area of a ground sign from 32 square feet to 54 square feet for the existing ground sign.
Good evening.
Good evening. Bianca Karas, 14 Hamlet Drive, Hopog. So I'm here for a variance for my pre-existing fence and my pre-existing sign. I just want to make it right because my partner was supposed to file all the paperwork. Clearly not my partner anymore. So I'm just here to get everything settled and corrected.
Okay. The sign is up already, and the fence is all,
The
right?
sign is up already. The sign measurements were taken from our adjacent property, which is the pickleball that used to be New
Right.
York Sports Club. So those are where the original measurements were taken from. And then the fence is existing as well.
Right, and the fence on Gibbs Pond, that's a dog run, right?
No, it's just
No?
an outside storage area. There's nothing back there. We just use it as storage where we clean
Oh,
things
that's
up.
storage? Oh,
Yep.
okay. I thought it was a dog run. Okay. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
Planning.
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18900, Metechen Aslantis, 42 South Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property is the west side of South Avenue, 1,000 feet north of West Avenue. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth to groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for a proposed 4,904 square foot, two-story, single-family dwelling with a 443 square foot attached garage.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. My name is Metan Aslantaş. I live in 42 South Avenue, Smithtown, New York. And Mr. Carmine represent me.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carmine?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We were here last month for a variance to build on environmentally sensitive land. The property is in high groundwater. So when we last left off, there was a question regarding the test boring that we had done. It was done at the front end of the site, and there was a concern because the building is further back on the site, so they wanted to see a test boring done in the location of the building. We've had that done since that time. That has been provided to the board, and what it read was that at the highest rate, at the highest tide, when they did the boring, they left it there for a while so they could see it at high tide and low tide and get what the variation is. At high tide, the water level at the location where the house is, groundwater level was 9.25 feet. At low tide, it was 10.89 feet. Obviously, we would have to take the higher of those elevations, so the groundwater at the house is 9.25 feet. So it really doesn't change anything that we had on the previous application. It wouldn't affect how we were going to lay out the building, the size, height, and the building as it stands meets all of the zoning requirements. There's no need for any variances for setbacks, floor area ratio, or anything like that. So I think that resolved the issue that was a concern about the groundwater being higher in the rear part of the property. One of the other requests was that we make an application to the health department. We're about to make that application. We're just waiting to get the updated survey with topography on it. There's obviously houses up and down the block that have sanitary systems there. We would do whatever it takes to put the sanitary system in the ground for the health department. We see no reason why there would be any reason why the health department would reject our application. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I don't have my notes with me, but can you go over again why you want this house set back so far?
The owner prefers having the house set back further because they have young children. They don't want it so close to the street. You can see where the previous house is on that drawing. It was much closer to the street than this house would be. They just like the privacy of having it further back in the yard. And we figure that since there's, they have that ability because of the shape of the property, there's no reason that they couldn't do it, I guess. That's,
So you're proposing to set it back 232 feet?
yes.
Okay. Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, I think they answered it. Thanks.
Steve? Any question? No? Okay. Planning?
Nothing new to add, Mr. Chairman. As I stated at the last meeting, the proposed setback of the proposed house does not meet the character of the neighborhood. The character of the neighborhood, if you look at aerials, the houses look to be typically set back from the road approximately 40 to 50 feet. The fact that they would propose to set it back more than 200 feet does not meet that character. Additionally, there would probably be some issues regarding privacy to the adjacent houses because of the rather large setback.
Thank you. Sabrina?
While we have received the new test hole data, DEW is still awaiting Department of Health approval before we can make a recommendation to the board. Lastly, we wish to consider information presented by the applicant, as well as any new comments received from the public. Therefore, no decision will be made tonight on this application.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Come on up one at a time, please. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mike Avicena. I live at 44 South Avenue. I'm just to the west of the proposed property. I have a number of issues, one being my pool is set about 300 feet back from the street. And this proposed house is going to be 230 feet back, which is, I think that's my house there, but you can't see. But I have a fence at 230 feet, 250 feet, that's blocking, segregating the pool area for safety reasons. And I believe that this house definitely does not agree with the characteristics of the block. Everybody's house, like you said, is 50 to 60 feet off of the street. And this is 200, for what reason? They say safety for the children. I'm all for safety for children. That's why we have a big backyard. It'll be over 300 feet of a backyard for safety. I raised 3 children in that backyard, in my own backyard. It's quite nice back there, actually. Behind us is a buffer zone of the green belt, which that's where the water is, obviously. What else? They're planning on building a basement, which, if that's the case, is fine. But I just want to make sure that the dirt that comes out of that basement is shipped off of that property. Because right now, the grade of the property is level, and when we have rain and storms, it dissipates into the ground. Where I saw on a couple of blocks other than mine, like on Lawson and North Avenue, they built new construction. They actually raised the property up so much that the runoff went off to the other people's property. They didn't realize it, unfortunately, until after the fact. So then they had to build retaining walls. So that's another issue. And if it's a 2-story building, I don't know, I think the height requirement is 35 feet, if I'm not mistaken. So if they're going to be raising the basement to have that clearance, just want to make sure that that height requirement is going to stay, below what's, accordingly to the codes. You have anything else to say? Yes. Okay. My better half will finish for me. But thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, how are you? My name is Sistina Aversano. Michael's my husband. I live at 44 South Avenue. I also represent my mom. She doesn't really speak proper English, and she lives at 40 South Avenue. So I was here last month, and again, the placement of the home is a really big issue for me. I've been living there over 30 years. We all know we bought properties on an acre of land, privacy in the back. Them building this house so far back, I will have not a driveway, a road basically running from the front of the house to their house. And for 7 bedrooms and 5-bathroom house, most likely there's going to be 7 cars eventually when all the kids grow up and they're all there, driving at 16, parents, in-laws, whatever. When I built my extension on my house, I built my bedroom in the back of my home, so I wouldn't hear any noise. It'd be quiet. I have the green belt behind me. Now I'm going to hear 7 cars down that driveway start up every morning. The kids aren't going to have a big backyard. Once the house is built 233 feet from the road, their house is how deep? Their backyard is going to be less than 100 feet or maybe 100 feet. They get to see my pool, they'll get to see me in the pool, and I'll get to see this huge house right next to my pool that's 300 feet from the road. My privacy is being interrupted every day. I live in my backyard. And again, being set back, it's not accordance with the neighborhood. Another thing I have problems with is the dirt in the basement, as my husband stated. They already bought that house. They bought it to flip. And they decided to keep it, which was great. We were so happy because it was it's been rented for 20 some odd years. The house did burn down. But when they cleared that property in the back, they bought like 6 truckloads of topsoil, not topsoil, fill, and laid that dirt everywhere. It wasn't clean fill, because when the first rain came, everything went hard. We asked the gentleman there, can we have a couple of buckets of dirt? When we took those buckets and put it on our bald spots in our backyard, it turned to cement. You couldn't grow grass through this. And this is what was in their backyard. The first major rain came, and I had many waterfalls all along my fence line. So not to be a rude neighbor, I put up 27 Leland spruces along that fence. I raised the Leland spruces as much as I possibly could so that the water would come to our side. So I made like a little gully, tried to do whatever I had to accommodate the new family that moved in and not to get upset with them. But now with this, my privacy is taken away and everything. And I truly believe the reason they're putting this house so far back, they had asked previously to join him, my mother and me, to put all 3 properties together so we could build a little cul-de-sac in the back of our yard. I said, no, I want my acre. My mom wants her acre. She does gardening and everything. And it's ground protection. You can't even ride a horse on that property behind us. That's how protected it is. So they went and built the house. I believe later on they're going to ask for a flag lot. I don't know if Smithtown allows flag lots, but let's start with the house. That's the biggest in the back. And then they'll come back to you in a year or 2 and say, I have an acre or so in the front of I have 3/4 of an acre in front of my house. Why not subdivide the property and make a flag lot? So that's my concern too. So when you give them permission to build so far back, we have to be concerned that they're not going to come back and ask for a flag lot, which I was told by the health department in Suffolk County when they bought my 2nd acre, they would never allow me to build back there. They was like, you'll never get a flag lot, you'll never get it, it's groundwater. And I really believe they had 2 perk tests done in 2 different spots. We have video, my daughter actually sent you an email of 2 videos. They were further back at the first time, and then they moved it up to the second point. So where this actual perk test was actually done at 9 feet, I find it really hard to believe at 9 feet you don't hit the Nesquag River. You should be hitting it at 6, where they were taken. And in the back, has to be at least 4.5 feet. That's where I hit it. And they're only like 30 feet away. So with this said, I think you should deny them. If they build a house, they should have it in the front. The basement dirt should be taken out of there because they already raised their property at least 6 to 10 inches all across the whole backyard when they knocked down every single tree. 3/4 of that property had trees and brush and beautiful landscaping. They decided to take it all down because they were flipping it, and then they decided to keep it. So with that said, I hope that you deny them the position of the house at least, to give me some peace, and my mom too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Colonna. I'm at 43 South Avenue. My question is, on the existing property at 42 right now is a huge abandoned trailer. No one's living in it. I thought the trailer was there for insurance purposes, for someone whose home had a fire in it, that the family would live in this trailer. I look every night, I don't see any lights on in the trailer, and when I speak to the other neighbors on the block, they tell me no one's living in this trailer. Several of us have called public safety to have the trailer removed. It's an absolute eyesore, and I have no idea why it's sitting in the front of the property. So we have not heard back from public safety. Again, Mr. Avasano called today, and we're getting nowhere with public safety. So is it considered an abandoned vehicle? I have no idea what it's doing
We'll
there.
ask.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Come on up, sir. Good evening.
Ms. Marco Diaz, I'm at 41. Hello? 41 South Avenue, relatively new neighbor to the neighborhood. Reason we purchased the house there, it's actually the blue one on that picture and the fourth picture in the bottom right, was because of the way the neighborhood was set up. The aesthetics of the neighborhood, all the houses kind of lining up, was something that I wanted to raise my family in this neighborhood. I echo a lot of what my neighbors are saying. I agree with them. More specifically, we see or we hope that building a new house there is going to be in line with all the other houses, but also that the intention is not to build a house so far back that in a couple of years they decide that they want to build a house in front, and now this becomes somewhat of an issue where now you have two homes kind of sitting there. And the reason we picked Smithtown and this area is because we want it to be away from Queens. We want it to be away from Brooklyn. And no knock on Queens or Brooklyn, but when you have houses back to back on top of each other, those are things that we wanted to raise a family where we would be kind of away from that. I have two little kids. They play fine in the backyard. They got plenty of space back there. Test hole that was done when the house was being renovated, we hit water at a little less than 8 feet. And we have no running water, no stream back there. So how they're not hitting water at a shorter distance there, I don't know. But I think I echo a lot of what my neighbors are saying, and we're all for building a house and putting a house in that neighborhood that's going to raise the value of everyone else's homes. All for it, but just do it in line with everyone else, and respect the privacy of others.
That's it. Thank you. Anyone else? Would anybody else like to speak? Once I bring Carmine back to answer some of your concerns, that's it. So if anybody has any questions, come on up now before I bring them back. No? All right, Carmine?
Thank you. Hold on one second. I was trying to jot some notes, so I knew the be addressed when I came back up here. One of the questions was regarding the trailer in the front of the property. I was asking my client why the trailer is there if there is nobody actually living in it. They actually put the trailer there to give the appearance that there was somebody there, just prevent anybody from going on the property. That's what they
Excuse me,
said.
please.
So,
Please.
I mean, if it's an issue to have the trailer there, obviously they can take it away. It was just something that they thought was a safety issue on their end to prevent anyone from going on the property. One of the questions was also regarding the runoff from the dirt from the basement going, what would happen? Obviously, sorry, if I hold this, I think that's better. As far as the basement, whatever excavation has to be done, it would be removed from the site. There is a possibility once we get the plans to the health department, and the health department makes a decision. They may ask for the sanitary system to be raised up somewhat. If that's the case and the grade has to be raised up, it would have to be done with retaining walls, because any runoff would have to stay on the property. That's the code. So we would follow the code and make sure that it's done in a way so that there would be no runoff going on to adjacent properties, into the green belt, onto the street. That's part of building code. As far as the position of the house and possibly doing a flag lot, as far as I know, flag lots are not permitted in Smithtown. I haven't seen any being approved any time that I'm aware of. So there's no intent for that. We actually discussed the position of the house when we were doing this, and they just, for their reasons, they wanted to be further back. I don't want to sound negative about this or argumentative, but again, this application has nothing to do with the position of the house on the property. It's all in regard to the fact that it's being built in high groundwater. If it wasn't being built in an area of high groundwater, we wouldn't even be here. They could put the house wherever they wanted on there, as long as it fits in the buildable area, in the building envelope. So that's where it's going. I understand the concerns. My client understands the concerns. They don't want to be looking into neighbors' backyards or in their pools and stuff, so they will be putting plantings, evergreen plantings, along the sides of the property so that that doesn't occur. But the position of the house isn't something that's before the board right now. It's just the fact that they're looking to build on high groundwater. I just want to reiterate that, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
The height of the house?
The height of the house, it meets the code. It's, I believe, I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe it was 32 feet and change, I think, or 33 feet at the most. It's right on the plan. Actually, I might have it handy right here. Looks like it's about 33.9, so almost 34.
Okay. All right.
That's it. If anyone has any questions, again, I'm happy
I don't
to
think so.
answer.
Just a comment, I believe the trailer ordinance does not allow trailers in front yards. I believe they don't allow them anywhere on the property for any length of time over a couple of weeks or something like that. So they would have to remove that.
They'll have it removed then, that's no
Where
problem.
was the original test hole you had done?
The-
What was the depth to
The
groundwater?
original test hole, I believe it was a similar number. Hold on. The original test hole was 9.10 feet, and that was roughly the area where the existing house was.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? That's it? Okay. Could I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
You too. I think that's it, right? And that concludes our hearing for tonight.